What is going on, 156 Nation? As we can see, our boy Rondo is not here today. We got myself hosting this show. We got a special show for you guys this week. We got our Vikings and Colts preview right here. We got myself, Anthony Gulick. He is Marcus Martin, one of our co-hosts. And this week we are welcoming Carson from the Skol Purple Pod. How you doing tonight, Carson?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be able to join you guys to talk about this big matchup for the Vikings. Maybe not so much for you guys. Maybe you're in tanking for the draft mode here, but definitely a big game for the Vikings after what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree, man. I did pick the Vikings to win last week, so that one kind of hurt my pocket a little bit, but that's okay. But just like you said, it's a big week for the Vikings. Maybe not so much for us, but anything can happen in the NFL. So our initial thoughts, just getting into the season as a whole, the Vikings are coming in with a brand new coach, brand new general manager. What have been your first impressions of the Vikings so far? The Vikings and the Colts have been two teams who have been compared a lot recently for teams that almost win every game. So, what have your initial thoughts been? This season so far as a whole.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the almost winning every game because that's exactly how the Vikings were last year, except they would lose those games. Where this year it's been more of the winning side of it, which has been great, but also a little bit like, is this sustainable? Can we keep doing this? And that's kind of been the running question, along with the defense continues to be the running question over the next several weeks and has been the running question for the Vikings. But I think everybody is probably overall pretty happy with how things have gone. I don't think anybody was expecting this team to go 10-3 to start the season, and especially with a rookie head coach in Kevin O'Connell and a rookie GM and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, which both of them have done a nice job helping out this first year team. But I don't think we're going to get a clear picture on exactly what this is going to be like in the future. I think Kwesi's first draft class has been kind of under fire over the last several weeks because of injuries to draft picks not performing well, and so some things like that as well. But I think overall we still have a lot to see from him as a GM. I think he's a very intelligent guy, knows what he's doing, but I think also the aspect of being the first time GM, like this is his first time actually getting to be in charge of making these decisions. He was kind of more of a consultant before this, so getting his feet wet with it. But Kevin O'Connell, I think he's done a lot of really good things. He's modernized the Vikings offense. It doesn't look like it's an offense from the 1980s, 1990s, where it's just run the ball, ground and pound anymore. It's a lot more three wide receiver looks, and also a lot more passing, as you probably saw statistically with Kirk Cousins throwing for over 400 yards on Sunday, pretty much because he had to, because the Lions were in front for most of that game. But definitely seeing a lot more passing, I think, than what we had seen previously with Mike Zimmer and that coaching staff. But yeah, overall, I think it's been a pretty good season. I think it definitely gives us hope for the future because I think we all were expecting the defense to maybe take a step back as it has the last couple of years, but maybe not be quite this bad. It's been pretty bad, especially the last few weeks, 5 weeks or so. The Vikings have allowed over 400 yards of total offense in the five the last 5 weeks of the season. So it's it's been hard to watch at times, but overall, I would say it's been a really good season for the Vikings. There's the long answer for you.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. The Vikings, just as a fan, I love, a lot of players on the Vikings. And one of my favorite players personally is Justin Jefferson. And, one of our questions from Rondo, who didn't get to be here tonight, was what was your reaction when you traded Stephon Diggs? And how quickly did you get over it when Justin Jefferson, really showed himself?
Well, Stephon Diggs wanted out because he did not like the Vikings situation on offense. Like I said, the Vikings offense now is modernized, but previously it was not. And that's why Stephon Diggs wanted out, because he wanted to have the passing game be a more centralized part of the offense. And now we've seen what he's done in Buffalo, where he is the focal point of that passing game. Obviously, they have other weapons, but he is the main target for Josh Allen. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think we were kind of all disappointed, but we were all kind of like, well, if he doesn't want to play here, then we probably shouldn't keep him around, you know? So that was kind of the thought, and we got good value out of him. And boy, oh boy, did we hit the jackpot by getting Justin Jefferson, who could very well be. I think he is the best wide receiver in the National Football League at this very moment. He is just so much fun to watch. Continues to get better, and that should be a scary thing for defenses. He continues to learn the game. He's only 23 years old, and he is so much fun to watch every week. He I don't know if you remember the first game they played Detroit. He had 3 catches, 14 yards that first time, and
Yeah.
then this time he went over 200 yards, breaking the Vikings single game receiving record. So I think he made an adjustment. But yeah, he's been so much fun to watch, and um, it's definitely a good thing. I don't know if I would have. I didn't hear as much about Justin Jefferson with some of the other receivers out of that draft class, but boy, I think if we could go back in time, there would be a lot more people taking a chance on Justin Jefferson early on, and the Vikings wouldn't have that luxury. But we're certainly thankful that we have him.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I have a question for you. Earlier in the season, when you guys were clicking on all cylinders, basically offense, you guys were able to pass the ball, and actually your running game was actually going pretty well too, up until maybe the last 2 weeks. Your running game has kind of took a step back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what you seeing, and it does it involve Devin Cook, or is it the offensive line?
So I think it's a little bit of both. I know Vikings Twitter has kind of been debating back and forth throughout the season of, well, is Dalvin Cook cooked? Is he done? Is he getting long in the tooth? Is he older now? Which I do think there's quite a bit of truth to that. I do think he does have some explosive ability left as well, but I think at the end of the season, it's a very good possibility that he's no longer a Viking just because of the cap number, and the Vikings can save some extra money. And I'm thinking that this front office is eventually going to try and adopt kind of that 49er running back philosophy, where they're going to kind of go with. I know now that they have McCaffrey, but previously they were very cheap on running backs. They would get draft picks and kind of just play by committee, which I kind of want to see the Vikings do more of that, because I do think running back is such an easy position to find, at least compared to a lot of other positions in the draft, or even undrafted free agents. We've seen, like with a what's his name from the Jets, Zonovan Knight. He's been fantastic for the Jets in a few games that he's come in. So running backs kind of, I don't want to say grow on trees, but sort of they kind of do. But I think Dalvin Cook maybe regressing a little bit has part to do with it. And then the offensive line, we did have Christian Darrisaw and then Blake Brandel, his replacement, get hurt in the Detroit game. So we were basically down to our third string left tackle by the end of that game. And then our center, Garrett Bradbury, went out as well. And we had to bring in our backup center. So I think that has definitely been part of it. But I think I think that the Vikings should be able to get a little bit better back on track this week against the Colts. But I am a little worried, I got to say, about the defensive line that the Colts have. I don't know how they've performed. I'm guessing they haven't maybe performed as well as the thought was going into the season based on your record. But I know that going into the season, I was like, this defensive line looks like it could be really good for you guys.
Yeah, the defensive line has actually played uh, pretty good all season long. We just didn't have the offense to complement the defense. The matchup I'm looking at is actually, you said you had some injuries on that offensive line, so I'm looking at our front four against whoever you guys got lined up at offensive line, whether it's your starters or your backup players. Um, our season hasn't really gone the way that we would like it to go. I know everybody, had a big vision when we got Matt Ryan, and this matchup here, we were hoping to be, kind of basically where you guys are, maybe at 10-3 or 7-3 or something like that. Um, but it didn't work out the way that we would liked it to. So, but uh, I'm actually intrigued about this matchup coming up. Just to see where we are as a team for the next 4 games. We know we're out of the playoffs. We know there's a small chance of us actually making it. I would like to see where we match up. Can we rebound from the Dallas game into this game? I know you guys are coming off a nice loss to Detroit, so I know you're going to come in fired up. You're going to come in because you guys actually have to win to clinch the playoffs, right?
Yep.
So I'm actually looking forward to it just to see where both teams match up and how well they play come Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
I agree.
should be interesting for sure. Go ahead,
Yeah, it
Anthony.
should be interesting for sure. And then real quick, my last question for you. Coming in to the season, just like I said, hiring that offensive mind has really helped. Kirk Cousins. Um, in years past with Mike Zimmer, he's been known as a great defensive guy. And then you bring in O'Connell, who's an offensive minded head coach, and the Colts are going to be looking for a head coach. So, um, were you personally more of a fan of Mike Zimmer, who took you to the NFC Championship game with his defense, or are you more of a fan now of this revitalized offense? Because we're trying to give fans a little insight of who we should hire, a defensive minded guy or an offensive minded guy. So who is your favorite coach, in in particular in years past and this year?
Well, all due respect to Mike Zimmer, and yeah, it's been a tough go for Mike Zimmer over the last few years. I think he lost his wife like 10 years ago or something like that. And then earlier this year, lost his son, Adam, who was on the Vikings coaching staff with him the last several seasons. So he's gone through a lot of life stuff. But I think at the end, it was just the Vikings did not like the scheme on offense that they were running, and there just was not enough production on the defensive side to warrant keeping Mike Zimmer because the Vikings defense under Zimmer for about 6 out of his 8 years was really good, top 15, top 10 type defenses. And then the last couple of years just absolutely bottomed out. And I think part of that is due to some of the talent regression that we're seeing on the defensive side for the Vikings as well. But also maybe Mike Zimmer not willing to change his scheme a little bit, which is funny that that's also kind of the way things are this season with a new defensive coordinator. But I am an offensive first guy. I love offense. So I love Kevin O'Connell. And I think he's doing, like you said, a really good job with Kirk Cousins and coaching him up to be the best version of himself that he can be, even though, as we've talked about at length as Vikings fans, it may not show up statistically every week, but a lot of the time he is performing with six fourth quarter comebacks. He is performing at the highest level when we need him the most. Now we would love to see this Vikings offense take the next step to be able to get rid of these lulls. They go into these lulls to begin the second half, third quarter, even in the second quarter, they have these lulls where they just don't do anything. And it's like, what's going on here? Like, Kevin, wake up, or Kirk, wake up, or whoever else on the offense needs to wake up. But it is kind of frustrating with that sometimes. But I do think that's part of Kevin O'Connell also learning as a play caller, learning as a first year head coach. trying to get the tempo figured out and trying to, wear many hats as well. I'm sure he's been trying to help out on the defensive side with the way things have been going over the last 5 weeks. But Jonathan Taylor, I will say, is probably my main concern with you guys, because I do think, obviously, we know what he represents in the running game, but I'm going to be interested to see if they decide to get him the ball in the passing game a little bit more. I know you guys don't have Naeem Hines anymore, so I'm interested to see if Jonathan Taylor also gets involved with the passing game. I know Matt Ryan kind of is maybe more of a dink and dunker compared to what he used to be.
Yeah, he's more of a dink and dunker, and a lot of us Colts fans have known where I've been at last few weeks. I was actually at the Sunday night game 2 weeks ago before our bye week, where we lost 55
I'm sorry.
to 19. Yeah, I was there. And Dink and Duncan is right though, because I swear to God, I've seen guys just coming from all different types of directions, and I'm like, just throw the ball. And luckily he did sometimes, but he did take some hits. Um, but next, I want to get into everybody's key matchups for the game. Marcus, we got yours already. Their front four against ours. I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna say our offensive line against the Vikings defensive line. So as Carson said, they've had some injuries to their offensive line. That's been the whole story of the year for the Colts. I feel like if the Colts offensive line was performing and healthy, um, they would be a little better. They've only got four wins right now. I'd probably say that they'd have about 7 or 8 right now if the offensive line was healthy. I can't go ahead and full blown say that they would be around where the Vikings or Eagles would be at right now, because Matt Ryan at quarterback is just not sustainable. But the offensive line being healthy would definitely help, because he has been under fire a lot. And the Vikings have a lot of proven names on their defensive line, like Hunter and Z Smith. That was a big pickup for them, because I remember he was supposed to go to Baltimore and then he backed out, and then he chose to choose the other purple team. So that's going to be my big matchup. Carson, what's your big matchup of the game this week?
Yeah, I think one matchup I'm interested in is Stephon Gilmore and Justin Jefferson. I think I'm guessing Stephon Gilmore will be on Jefferson most of the game. I think if the Colts can limit Justin Jefferson, and like you said, if their offensive line can hold up in pass protection, I would really like the Colts' chances of making this a competitive game, because if you let Matt Ryan stand back in the pocket and pick you apart, I think he's capable still of doing that when he has the time, when he doesn't have pressure in his face. Now, I do think he has regressed a little bit, but like I said, when he does have the time, I think he's got the ability still to go down the field. But um, I think that the Colts will struggle to keep him protected. I think the Vikings will mix up their looks maybe a little bit defensively this week. And so yeah, I think that's probably the most interesting one, Gilmore on Jefferson. And I'm also interested to see the Colts wide receivers against the Vikings defensive backs, because I don't think they're, other than Michael Pittman, I don't know if there's really a really top tier type of receiver that you guys have. But I know that the Vikings don't necessarily, outside of Patrick Peterson, have a top tier secondary right now, and Harrison Smith if he's back healthy for Saturday. But I think that's another matchup I'm looking at, is like, okay, is somebody gonna stand up and make some plays on this Colts wide receiver core? And it's gonna be interesting. I think the Vikings have have a lot of injuries too, by the way, at cornerback. So they just signed a guy off of a practice squad today who ran like a 4.2. So I there's hope there, but who knows if he would slide in right away and how well it would go in coverage, because if you're running the wrong coverage, there's only so much speed can do to make up for it. But yeah, I'd say those matchups are kind of my ones that I'm keying in on right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's going to be fun to see what the wide receivers do. One the game that sticks out to me actually is the Vikings game when they played the Colts. It was Rivers, the Philip Rivers year 2020. I remember Paris Campbell was running one on one with Harrison Smith, and he got tackled, and Paris Campbell like tore his ACL or something like that. And
Ooh.
really, he hasn't been the same since. This is the first season where Paris Campbell's been healthy, but that was the second game of the year, I believe. Paris Campbell had the first week. He had a big game at Jacksonville. Everybody was thinking he was going to break out, and then the Vikings game ended his season. He hasn't been the same since. So it'll be interesting to see what the wide receivers do for sure. Next, I'm going to get into some score predictions. So the line for this game is going to be 48 and a half, and the Vikings are favored by 4 at home. So I'll kick it to you, Marcus. What's going to be your score prediction for this game?
Well, I'm looking at all the matchups, and my score prediction, I'm thinking 17-20 Colts.
Wow, bold predictions. Okay, Carson, let's kick it to you.
Well, I tell you what, I think if the Vikings are held under 20 points, I think you guys have a good shot of winning because just how badly the defense has performed. But I think the Vikings, like you said, Anthony, are going to come out motivated, and maybe you said it, Marcus, as well. They're going to come out motivated for this game because we saw how they came out offensively in against New England after they lost to Dallas, got absolutely boat raced by the Cowboys. And I know it was a little bit different in Detroit, but I think they're motivated to come back and prove that okay, we can. We're still a good football team. We're still in the playoff hunt, and actually, we could potentially clinch our playoff spot this week by just beating the Indianapolis Colts this week. And I don't know if I have a ton of faith in your coaching staff. That's another thing I will say. And I'm not saying Jeff Saturday couldn't be a good coach, but I think there's just so much for him to learn at this point. And I don't know offensive coordinator wise how that's going. Defensive coordinator, I'm not sure either, but I will say I think there is a chance for the Colts to win this game. I think that anyway because it's the NFL any given Sunday or Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's always going to be something in the back of my mind, especially as a Vikings fan. Uh, we know that all too well. So but I am going to say the Vikings. I'm going to pick the Vikings. 30-20 is what my score prediction was yesterday. So I'll stick to it. I won't change it. 30-20 Vikings over the Colts. And they get their bounce back victory.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there, Carson. My score prediction for this game is going to be 28-17 Vikings. As we keep saying, I think they're going to come out, motivated. They are at home. If this was going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium, I would go ahead and probably give the edge to the Colts. But since we're on the road, Saturday first game on Saturday, all eyes are on you. I think the Vikings are going to play a really good game offensively. I personally think, just like the Dallas game last week, it's going to be a very close game until the wheels fall off. Literally, I saw it right in front of my eyes when it was 21-19 2 weeks ago, how three or four plays can change a football team, and then Dallas scores 33 unanswered points. So I'm thinking that the wheels fall off for the Colts around the third quarter, fourth quarter, some second half, sometime around there. And one thing I've noticed this year about the Colts is that a lot of these teams that we play out of division, I really like to look at history and how we've played these teams, and we don't really have very many like winning streaks or losing teams against teams. Like we really go back and forth a lot. So like the Raiders come to mind. One year we'll play the Raiders, we'll win. Next year we'll lose, and then last year we lost. And last time we played the Vikings was a couple of years ago. We lost, and I'm thinking that they're going to beat us this time, just because of how history has worked out. Because with all the other games, it's just coming to my mind right now. Let me look at the schedule. Like the Eagles. Last time we played the Eagles, we beat them, and this time we lost. So, I like to look at history. Same thing with Washington. Last time we played Washington was when Andrew Luck had his last year, and then they came and beat us miraculously at home for no reason. So I'm thinking that the Vikings are going to win this game convincingly, 28-17, with a big fourth quarter fourth quarter offensive barrage. So, with our last segment, as we usually do it here on First and 56, we have our bold predictions for the game, but we always make it within the realm of possibility. So, for my bold prediction this week, I'm going to say that Jonathan Taylor is going to have a bounce back week. He's going to have 100 yards rush, at least 100 yards rushing, and a touchdown. He got hurt earlier in the year. He looks like he's lost a lot of his speed. It's been really sad to see, honestly. But what I want to see this week is at least an 100-yard performance because I want to see him get a little bit of his mojo back because hopefully if he comes in the next year healthy, it'll be a positive for the team because we're already down so many pieces. It would suck if Jonathan Taylor doesn't look the same. So I want to see like a retro performance from Jonathan Taylor. Marcus, let's go to you next.
My bold prediction would be the matchup between Stephon Gilmore and Justin Jefferson. I think he will hold Justin Jefferson to about maybe 60 yards receiving. And he probably will. I'm looking at maybe possibly getting a pick in that game too. So I'm looking at that key matchup right there.
Yeah, very good.
Carson,
what's your bold prediction?
Yeah, so I just looked it up just for fun, and the Vikings have not beaten the Colts since 1997, the year after I was born, by the way. So it's been a while since the Vikings beat the Colts. So that's kind of a bold prediction that the Vikings are going to beat the Colts, isn't it? But I will say I think I agree with Marcus. I think Justin Jefferson will be held under 100 yards in this game, and he will not be the Vikings' leading receiver in this game, but the Vikings will still find a way to get enough points, get some of the other players involved, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, Dalvin Cook maybe has a bounce back game. So Justin Jefferson will not be the leading receiver for the Vikings, but he will be held under 100 yards, but they will still win the game.
Yeah, great predictions here. Great predictions. So real quick, we wanted to give a big thank you to Carson for hopping on our show real quick. Let me put his socials down here at the bottom. We want everybody to follow his podcast. He does great work for the Vikings over there. Follow them at the Skol Purple Pod. The Vikings are, as a football fan, they're one of my, favorite teams, top NFC teams to watch. And that's just not me saying it because he's on here. I live, Western Pennsylvania. We have a lot of Buffalo fans, and seeing them lose to the Vikings in overtime this year was just amazing. So that was so awesome to see. But
what was the reaction after that game? From what you're.
It was great. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I work at like a sports bar with like bowling lanes and stuff like that, and I get to watch the games. We only get the local channels. So coincidentally, they had that game on, and you got like literally like 10 people watching the game, like in their Josh Allen jerseys, and then they thought they won the game, and then all of a sudden like the fumble happened, and then you see like all the employees, like myself, everybody's freaking out and stuff. It was so crazy to see. You actually like work with a couple Minnesota fans as well, and like it's just so fun to see because usually it's the other way around. You hear like a bunch of people cheering, but and like I said, Justin Jefferson's one of my favorite players. Like as a fan, and seeing him make that one-handed catch is just awesome.
Yeah, that catch, like. There was somebody that came out with a video saying that we are underselling this catch. That catch, I think, is better than the OBJ catch. And I get that they're different catches, but the fact that the defender had his hand on the ball and he had
insane.
two guys right on him. Like, it was just incredible. Like, still have no idea how he caught that. And I still have no idea how the Vikings won that game, by the way. It was just a crazy game. One of the greatest games of the year, I think, no doubt.
I think that probably was the game of the year, honestly.
Yeah, I think so, but I know there's probably a few other games you could maybe throw in, but I would definitely think it's got to be Vikings Bills. But it's funny though, because that game nearly became a non-game. Like it was, the
Yeah.
Bills were up by
Yeah.
17, and then lo and behold, here come the Vikings once again with another fourth quarter comeback, and they get the lucky bounce their way on that fumble, and then they go and win it in overtime. So pretty crazy game. But yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Skol Purple Podcast on YouTube. We will be doing a post game on Saturday after the game, which you can also find on our YouTube channel. So yeah, appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Carson, for hopping on. This was our, first episode without Rondo on, so I'd like to think I did a good job along with you two, Marcus. So, thank you to everybody for hopping in, watching us once again, and we will see you next week for post game. Peace. All right, let me end
All right.
recording.